Hello, everybody. My name is Professor Stephen Bujno, and I'd like to welcome you to this Ethics and Moral Issues course at Northampton Community College. I have just a couple, let's say, housekeeping things to cover before I just give you a brief content lecture. And by brief, I mean 5-6 minutes. So this housekeeping stuff, if we were in the classroom, we would be just spending a little more time on this than we are. So I'm going to rely on you to reach out to me if anything's not clear, all right? First off, I would like you, as I said in the syllabus, to go over to the discussion board and introduce yourself. Put up a profile pic. Anytime that we're in these courses that are online, we need to do something a little extra to bridge the difference. So I gave a couple bullet points on what you could talk about yourself. Let me and your fellow classmates know something more about who you are. And take the time to read theirs. And feel free to respond once or twice. Okay? Anyway, make sure you do that. Plus, it'll just help us feel better as we go through this course and do the discussions, the written discussions in the forum, and also we're going to have two Blackboard collaborative face-to-face discussions. We'll plan those together. Anyway, also, take a look through the syllabus. All of NCC's policies are there, so there should be nothing original with a lot of that. But when you get down into the assessments and how I will, basically administer your grade, I need you to read that very thoroughly. I'm looking down at my notes here, sorry, so I make sure I don't forget anything. I've done my best to lay everything out, tell you what percentage this counts towards your final grade, how many points it's worth, and I would like you to make sure that you're very clear on what that point value is, and then also the description of the assessment so that you know exactly what it is we're talking about. I did my best to make sure that it is clear, but clarity, as you will learn in philosophy, resides in the hearer. So you're going to have to tell me or ask me questions if there is something you want me to explain further. I'd be more than glad to do it. You'll notice the last few pages are the course schedule and readings. I could not have made it simpler for you. Go to every single unit and you will see what week is there and you will see what is due there. So the entire course is laid out for you. And I also copy and paste those into the module units right on Blackboard. And I even try to hyperlink to the specific pages, if like we're doing discussions, to the discussion page. If there's a video I want you to watch, then to that. As far as the textbook, we're using Revealing Ethics, so it's an online interactive textbook. I did it because I think it would save you money. It was only $50-$60 rather than the $120 book that other people may use in this course. So anyway, make sure you look at that. Pay very strict attention to the due dates. They are hard deadlines, and I don't mean that to say hard. I don't mean that to be a hard person, I should say. In other words, if there are extenuating circumstances, then we could adjust those. But by extenuating circumstances, I don't just mean that we're busy in life or things come up or I don't feel well, right? So it'd have to be something fairly serious, like an in-hospital stay, emergency room visit, God forbid a death in the family or such. And the reason why I'm sticking to that is because we all are busy. We all have many things and juggling school and work and other stuff. And if I have to try to make some discernment as to whether or not this particular person can come in late, somebody else is going to get me and say, well, look, if I would have told you what was going on in my life, you would have been easier on me too. So it's just fair for all of us if we just stick to those. That being said, whatever Northampton Community College's policy is, I'm not going to do anything less than that, okay? So that's about it. Let's see here. Okay, that's about it. Now, typically my videos, which won't be every single module, I don't think, could be, would start now. And like I said, 5 to 6 minutes. You don't need to watch this. There's nothing interesting in me or what's behind me. This is my little man cave here, okay? But that being said, you could at least listen to it. So we're going to be talking about in this first section what the goals are for education, and they've changed over time. For many people, education is a means to get employment and make money and to have a life that you can afford to live in a decent and respectable way. And that's a good thing. And I hope that whatever you're pursuing at Northampton, or if Northampton's a leap for you to somewhere else, that happens for you. But that is not simply what education is for. That is what vocational training is for. And vocational training is very important, and it is highly dignified. But you are trained for one specific thing. So the knowledge that you are given and the wisdom that is dispelled to you is limited. Well, when you're going for a particular degree, a bachelor's, a master's, or whatever, you are trying to what we would call, I know it sounds a little odd, to be more free as a person. In other words, have a more broad base in your understanding of what it is. So it's not just a particular skill that you're using. Now, why do I say that? Because some people might take a course like this. I think there's some really interesting topics we're going to be talking about, but they might say, how will I use this in my particular job? So everything becomes what we will learn utilitarian. How can I use it? And that kind of limits us, and that's kind of a new way to look at things as far as education is concerned. So we study philosophy, and if you want to know what the etymology of the word is, you should know. It's pretty simple. Philosophia, brotherly love. My God. Brotherly love of wisdom. Philia is brotherly love, so it's that love of wisdom. So we're going to have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of wisdom in life? Well, the purpose of wisdom is for us to live a fuller life, those things that count the most, right? Things that money cannot buy, that careers will never satisfy, that even marrying the most handsome or beautiful person in the world is never going to really in itself bring you. So when we talk about happiness as a goal, we're not just talking about what makes you or I content, but something that truly, truly makes us as human individuals satisfied in the inner longings of our heart. So things like beauty, truth, and goodness, and love, and justice, and equality, these are things that we will study, and they are in the realm of philosophy. And they are the very things that people in countries have fought and died over. So they are quite important. They're actually the things that we would call, in the end, brings us happiness. Again, as long as you understand happiness as not just simply what makes you or I content. Now, if that sounds a little bit too abstract and say, well, I don't really know exactly, what part in that life is going to, what part in my life that will be. Let me back up a little bit. Because philosophy is not just simply abstract. And when we say abstract, we don't mean hard or obscure, okay? Philosophy is going to help you articulate your thoughts. It's going to help you delve into reading that's a little more difficult, but you're going to see things clearer. It's going to help you with your critical thinking. So if I tell you that through studying philosophy, it's going to help you articulate your thoughts, and it's also going to help you be a deeper critical thinker, I'm not sure what profession you can go into that's not something that would be useful to you. So there is that aspect of it. I don't want to give you the impression that this is purely theoretical, because it's not. But beauty, truth, and goodness, they are known as the epistemological ladder. Like they call them the transcendentals. They call them transcendentals because they aren't limited to any particular time. So these things are true for all ages. They also don't limit themselves to any particular region or country, so they're also universal in that way. Epistemology is how do I know something, right? The study. So if we ever studied epistemology, it'd be the study of knowing. So beauty, truth, and goodness are the epistemological ladder, the ladder to which we know things. So we start out with beauty. We will find something that's not, we'll talk about this, you'll actually read about it also. Something that's not just attractive to us in a shallow way, but something that touches us in a way that brings splendor to our lives. And then that beauty will lead us to truth. And then that truth, once known, could help us live in a goodness, right? So beauty, truth, and goodness, it's in that direction. Which, if beauty is the one that starts the whole thing out, the first rung on the ladder, maybe now you can at least start to get an appreciation for how important we understand what beauty is, and how we will kind of flip that around and make sure that we're not just talking about things that titillate us, right? But actual beauty, nonetheless. Let's see. So, I already talked about the epistemological ladder. Okay, so these things then, if these are going to be part of our pursuit in this course, we also need to know this. They often come at a high price. In other words, when we go through a learning process, it's hard and difficult. And oftentimes we need to be drugged into it, because we are very comfortable. Nobody wants to say that I'm comfortable in my ignorance, but learning can be difficult. So when you watch the allegory of the cave, you'll notice, and I want you to pay clear attention to, how does that man leave the cave? He's drug out. When he is drug outside, then he sees the world with eyes that he never could have envisioned before, because all he ever saw were shadows, right? There was this elevated bridge behind him, and there was the fire, the light on the other side, and as people passed or animals passed, all he ever saw was the shadows that they casted. So those shadows were reality to them. In other words, educational-wise, that was their level of ignorance, but he was quite content because it's all he knew. But once he was drug out of his ignorance and saw the world, the bright new world, the beautiful girl that comes by, the sun and such, now he can't even know, doesn't even know what to make of this. This is overwhelming for him. So anytime that we have that eureka experience, right, we come to know something like that, and you're going to write about yours, what we want is to share this with other people. So what does he do? He runs back into the cave and he tries to share his story with them, but he winds up being nothing more than a shadow on the wall, and they don't recognize their old friend. So that's going to be part of the problem. Once you get to a certain stage, and it's not just, there's plateaus of enlightenment in various aspects, we want to share that, but not everybody's going to understand the joy and the splendor that we have in that. So we have to be patient with them as they were with us and realize that this doesn't make anyone better or greater than anybody else. On different things, we're at different levels of this on different aspects of our life, okay? So nonetheless, I want you to keep that in mind too. The last thing, and this one's just a little bit longer again because of the little housekeeping issues I had in the beginning. I wanted to share my eureka experience. When I was a senior in high school taking English literature quite some time ago, I had a teacher who, he had no training in English literature. He was just an extremely intelligent man. And the first 2 weeks of class, my memory is a little foggy, we were to learn English poetry, and what he would write is on the board, he'd write these cryptograms. You know, like you put a couple letters up there and you leave blanks, and then you're supposed to figure out what letters are missing. You keep trying to switch in the vowels. If it's a 2 letters, you know it's going to be at or to, something like that. And then you have to see how the letter works somewhere else. And then eventually, you know, you keep struggling at this. It's very difficult in the beginning. There's like what they call a slow learning curve. And it takes a while until you can get enough people that are starting to figure this out. And then once you get enough letters up there, the whole thing comes together. And then at that point, you're wondering, how did I not see this before? All right. Well, we were doing this for 2 weeks. I had no idea what this guy was up to. And then one day he stopped and he saw us, he helped us work through some English poetry. And we were all struggling. I don't know what it means. I'm not quite sure. People would shout out this idea. Somebody else would shout out that idea. We said, well, that could mean that, but then this would have to mean that. And before we knew it, we realized what he did. He was giving us the approach to learning, the discovery process that he had taught us through cryptograms, and just applying it to English literature. So what happened was we'd get so far into the understanding the poem, and then it'd be a eureka moment. Somebody would go, aha, I get it. And then the whole thing would seem so sensible we didn't realize we missed it before. That's how education works. That's how it's going to work in this course. You're going to be challenged. There's going to be things that you either already accept and you may have to rethink them, or the things that you kind of understand but you're not quite sure why, and maybe you'll be just fortified in that. But on many levels, the challenge is going to be dragging you into some new ways of looking at things, sometimes not comfortable, and oftentimes against exactly what you thought you believed coming in. At the very least, you're going to have an understanding and appreciation and a respect for other people's opinions. But if we get good on certain issues, something will click. And it doesn't have to click in this course. This can click 5 years later. But when it does, that's a eureka experience. Okay? So anyway, again, just welcome. I'm looking forward to this. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. You guys have my cell number. You also have my email. Just make sure if you try to text me or something, put down you're from NCC. I'm kind of like, you know, in a few different schools. All right? All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. See ya.